do want to let you know this microphone's a little old, so I'll be projecting. I hope you all can hear me. But welcome to the District 1 breakfast for amazing turnout. I'm really excited. I haven't seen this many people here since before the pandemic. So that's awesome. Glad you all are here. We have fellow council members, and one is here that I always get the mayor or our new hires in District 1 first. And the mayor is here before she's been at any other breakfast, but she's here too. But before we get started, I want to bring up to Donna to talk about the amazing breakfast you have this morning. So, Mr. Donna.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. I hope you can hear me. As he said, my name is Tadana Neal. I am with the program that's serving the breakfast this morning. It's called Books and Breakfast, ICT. We have been serving the community for a little bit over 5 years now, primarily 67214 area. What we do is we provide free breakfast for our community members, as well as free reading resources, as well as financial literacy resources. So we're here to serve our community. We are in the back, as we all who have enjoyed the breakfast that we have served. We are not primarily, we are all donation based. So if you've enjoyed the breakfast, please, we invite you to donate to the program. It all 100% goes back to the program to serve our community. Right?
We'll get a collecting slate next time. So they have agreed to do breakfast for us at our District 1 breakfast, at least while we're here. As many of you know, throughout the year, I will rotate the breakfast to a different part of the district just to give more exposure. But while we are here at Atwater, they are providing breakfast. So happy to have them here. Also today, I know you all have seen much of the news going on. I always give my updates at the end. So those of you interested to know more about what's going on with the statue and the future of all of that, I'll talk about that at the end because we have a lot of good information to get through today. But before we jump into our presentation, I want to welcome up Mayor Wu and Councilmember Glasscock to say hello.
First and foremost, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Thank you so very much for having myself and Councilmember Dalton Glasscock. He represents District number 4, which is in Southwest Wichita, and he'll talk just a little bit, but I just wanted to start off by saying thank you. This is exactly what I love to see. Community involvement, being part of the community, being part of the solution. We have a lot of challenges in Wichita, but we also have a lot of good. And the good is in the room. It's in all of you. It's in people. And I really believe that the biggest challenges that we all face in our communities can be solved by each of us making a little difference towards that solution. So my name is Lily Wu, and I am now the 103rd mayor for the city of Wichita. I am so proud to come from this community. I'm a product of Wichita Public Schools, proud to represent Wichita East Mike and Blue Aces. And I'm also a Wichita State University graduate. I'm a Wu shocker. I was really grateful to have gone to Wichita State across the street. I am the first in my family to graduate from high school and from college. And I was able to go across the street because of a scholarship. And that scholarship is called the Gore Scholarship. And just this week, 3 new Gore Scholars got a life-changing opportunity to go to WSU and pursue their degrees and also focus on giving back to the community. Ever since I was young, I've always thought about Wichita as my home, but this is not where I was born. I was actually born in Antigua, Guatemala. So my first language is actually Spanish. And I came here as a little immigrant from Guatemala as an 8-year-old girl. And I came here because my late grandfather lived in Wichita. And I'm so grateful that this is where I now call home. and have been called home for the past 30 years. My passion is in giving back to the community that has invested so much into me. And I believe that because I'm a product of public school systems. And so that means that each and every one of you, if you've been here for 30 years, you invested in me. So I want to say thank you. I'm the product of your investment. And I have now served 12 years as a local reporter, and using those same skills of communication, of listening, of understanding the issues in our communities that spurred my passion to come and serve. On the 30th anniversary of coming to America, I announced my candidacy for mayor. And on November 7th, I was elected by the community. And now what I want to do is simply serve. And I believe that the Council of Seven, the seven of us, are here to serve our community. My 4 goals have been about public safety, growing this economy, restoring trust in City Hall, and building a united community. And each and every day, I try to strive towards making Wichita a safer place, a place with opportunities for all, with jobs, and a City Hall that you can trust and is communicating with you about what is happening with your tax dollars. And last but not least, making sure that this community understands that we are all in it together, because we are part of the same team. We're part of Team Wichita. And that is an us and a we that we need to remind ourselves of, because division does not help us go towards solutions. We are in this as Wichitans, and I'm really proud to represent them. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. First off, I want to start that I'm very hopeful for our city. I'm very excited, I'm very energized. I've only been on the job 3 weeks, so any tough questions have to go to Councilman Johnson. Acknowledge me to do it. But I'm here to listen, and I want to thank you for the invitation. Councilman Johnson has been probably one of my biggest mentors since being elected, and I think we talk, we just go to each other's offices pretty often and chat. And so I've enjoyed our friendship prior to this. And you're very well represented in this as well. I've also really enjoyed Mayor Wu. She brings energy to the office, and every day I walk in, I'm energized. What I'm most excited about is all 7 of us get along. All 7 of us have a very good working relationship, and all of us feel comfortable. And that's where good governance, especially in local government, should start. So I'm very excited to hear all the questions. I'll give a brief overview of myself. Born and raised in Wichita, grew up on the west side of town. Actually graduated from Wichita State University, and I lived downtown as well. So I was actually a resident of District 1 for about 5 years through my time at Wichita State and my time living downtown. I now represent Southwest Wichita, and so it's everywhere for the most part west of the river and south out to Goddard, and then south of Douglas or Maple all the way out to Hayesville. So it's the largest geographical part of the district. It's very economically diverse. You have Delano, you have Auburn Hills, and you have areas near, 47th and Seneca, and parts of Broadway as well. So I've enjoyed the opportunity to get to know and talk to people. What Councilman Johnson didn't say is I'm not having breakfast this month because he invited me first. And so next month or next week, I'm going to be at District 3 with Councilmember Hoheisel in meeting as well. So I think it's good. I was elected from District 4, but my job now is to serve the entire city, make sure that we make decisions that are benefiting the entire city, not just my district. So that's why I think it's very important for me to get outside of my district and hear from you all. So my background, small business owner. I used to do military and veteran affairs, United States House of Representatives. So what I'm most excited about for this job is the constituent service aspect. So when someone has a pothole, that excites me because we can try to solve that problem and restore their trust in local government in some small way. And so I want to introduce Brooke. Brooke, raise your hand. Brooke's my CSR for District 4, and she's incredible. We meet weekly to talk about the concerns of the district. And I think she calls people, someone that we all need, she's called them within 30 minutes to talk about the issue facing the city. And so that's what people want, is a very responsive government. And that's what I know myself and my colleagues are willing to offer. So graduated from Wichita State by undergrad. I went in, got my master's in education from George Washington University. And my heart's always been in Wichita. So I actually started my involvement in civic government I was a member of the Mayor's Youth Council when I was 14 years old and have stayed engaged in government since then. So I served on the Bicycle Steering Committee. I served on the District Advisory Board where I was chair of the District Advisory Board prior to this as well. And so for anybody interested, anybody knows any young person, you can still have an active Mayor's Youth Council. It was the most beneficial civic organization that I joined in when I was younger. So if you have someone high school age that's interested in civic government, there is an advisory council to the mayor and the rest of the council on issues that matter to you. So I would highly encourage that involvement too. Some of my big issues, first off, again, I'm new. So I want to take the opportunity to just learn from my colleagues and also tour all the city departments. So we had the chance to tour all the city departments so far and meet with the incredible staff that work for the city. And that's been one of my highlights over the past month. We actually started that prior to our swearing in and met with department heads in December as well. So we're hitting the ground running. Now we're getting out to community events a lot more. Now that we at least have a base knowledge. But every day I feel like I'm going to class and learning new involvement, especially when I meet with the housing department. That's probably the most education that I've gotten because there's a lot of acronyms. Sally, how many pages are your book about?
It's about 14 pages.
14 pages of acronyms. I would not have those memorized. But I'm looking forward to your questions. I know we have a lot of challenges facing our community as well. But I think there's a lot of opportunity and a lot of hope too. So questions now, is that how you want to do it? Okay.
Well, I have a question, I guess, for you, Dalton, and maybe also for the mayor. Your views then, I guess, on the Wichita Police Department, this community of brown and black people, by Wichita Police Department's own analysis of traffic stop data, they're pulled over disproportionate to their representation within the community. Right, and that's like a big deal for people of color. So, and this may be a statistic that you don't know, or hadn't heard before, right? So, I mean, what would you see the chief or the department doing so that is no longer the case? And I'll say, this isn't unique to Wichita, right? But we live in Wichita, so that's what we care about. So I don't know if you think of solutions, and just your thoughts.
I think we have to address systemic issues as a whole, and it really starts with involvement in the community. Community policing officers and making sure that we get to know those serving our community, I think is paramount as well. I know the city's looking at an evaluation of the Jensen Hughes report. And making sure that we make reforms in the department. I haven't heard any opposition for law enforcement regarding any of the recommendations from the report. So I really think it starts with communication, involvement in the community, and also making sure that we listen to our advisory boards on these issues. So when we have challenges, we're listening and we're trying to be responsive to those as well. So it really comes down to getting out in the community, having those conversations, building trust, and also holding officers accountable as well.
Let me add to that. So just 2 weeks ago, a new class of recruits got into the law enforcement training center. They're going to go through a 24-week program. So from recruit to actual officer takes 24 weeks, which is the longest for any department in the state of Kansas. So we have a very rigorous training program for police officers. There are 35 new recruits. And as someone who has gone through the Citizens Police Academy, I highly encourage our community to also be part of it. Lila, you've been through it. So I encourage our community to understand the complexities of just government and also of police department. To answer your question directly though, I know that our police chief wants to do the right thing and does the right thing. I've had conversations with him about Jensen Hughes, about the boards, and he is definitely very responsive. And so I am hopeful about the things that are happening in the department. But I will tell you that just 6 months ago, we were facing about just over 100 of police officer shortage. And that is real. That means officers were just responding to calls. And when we asked for more community policing, which is what our community wants, they had to pull community policing officers to be beat officers because there weren't enough of them. So that's the reality. And so I'm really glad to see that there are 35 new people that say they want to be public servants for our communities. And if you would have heard their hearts, when I was there this week, I asked them, what is motivating you to be in this room? Because it's not an easy job. And a majority of them said family. So they understand that they're part of this community. This is their family too. And that they want to be treated just like how they would want their family members to be treated by officers. And so we need to remind ourselves that these are our neighbors too. They are part of our community. And so I highly encourage, again, all of you, if you have the opportunity to be part of the Citizens Academy or the Civic Creation Academy.
I hear and continue to hear about the relationship of police and community and community policing. But I'm troubled because I don't know what that means, because how many people in the community even know the police officers who are in their community? And I have seen, I see police officers in the cars, in the parking lots of whatever. So I'm just concerned it's not about the platforms, it's the action. That people know who the community is, what they're doing, other than coming to address the community.
I think it's very good feedback. A lot of the time they're doing paperwork in parks and parking lots. So there's still a presence, but I agree. I think it's very good feedback. And we're short officers. A lot of officers are spending time doing paperwork when they could be engaging with the community. And so I recognize that as a challenge as well. So thank you. I know I saw a hand over here first, and we'll come back over here.
I have a question. Drive-by shootings in the neighborhood. It's not a day go by that I don't get a report of somebody hearing gunshots. Last night it hit close to home, gunshots. Now I hear this about the police being shot, so many people, down so many officers. Are any of these reports being followed up on that you know of? Because this is a major problem. And it's not only in this district, it's all over town. And so what's gonna be done about that?
So the focus is really on violent crime. There are guns involved where fatality is a possibility. That is what our police department needs to focus on, and that's what we have asked the police department to focus on too. Violent crime is what should be the top priority to try to mitigate. When we see young people getting shot and killed, and this happened just again overnight, just last night, another young person, that's a problem. And it cannot be a police solution. It has to be a community solution. How did a 14-year-old get a hold of a gun, right? And how can we remind young people that there are other ways to solve issues? And that when you use a gun, that again, the possibility of fatality is real. And it's not like a video game. You don't get to start over. And so I hope that as community members who came out here on a Saturday morning, I encourage you to be part of whether it's the mentoring program that there are already in our community. Prime Fit is one of them. Heroes Academy, which was the former Real Men, Real Heroes program. That's still around. They want mentors. Our school district has a program called the Future Ready Advocate Mentors. They're asking for people to come into their schools and mentor. So there are opportunities for you all to also help us with these crimes that could happen or already happening. And it really does start with young people. They need to know that we care. They do. And so I encourage you, if you have some time, to think about becoming a mentor.
You were next.
I just want to say that I believe totally in Dr. Manning, but it caught my attention when you said that police officers spend time in their cars doing their reports. That was news to me. I never thought of them, if they're not able to concentrate on what's going on around them. They should have, I don't know if it's unique to Wichita that they do that. this is, you know, it caught my attention that you said something about them doing their reporting in their vehicles. But how are they aware and how much time are they allowed to sit and do reports when they should be aware of what's going on around them in the community?
So I did a police ride along, and so I saw it firsthand. We did not stop. It was call to call to call to call, back to back to back. And the officer, every opportunity we had, even 5 minutes, was trying to file a report from the last call we had. So it wasn't that he was sitting there trying to do a deal, he was just trying to fill the required information so we could go to the next call very quickly. And so because we're short officers, they don't have the opportunity to be able to document it, or go back to the station, be able to do it. And this allows them to stay in the community, have some presence where they're recording information. And it's just because they are literally doing call. And I would encourage everybody, if you haven't done a police ride along, it's open. And anybody can do a police ride along. I'm doing another one in West Bureau next week. And so you can see it firsthand, the challenges they face of just having to maintain a presence, but also documenting every single thing. So we can follow along.
I understand that, but we were just at a facility where there's a senior center. And we observed 2 police cars. One was sitting there for a while and we came out and the other one was sitting next to me. And they were having conversations sitting on a public parking lot where there are seniors going in and out. And it just seemed to me that they have time to converse sometimes too. And maybe that's in line with what they're doing, their job, but still, it's, you know, it's kind of concerning that you see them a lot sitting around.
Let's get a few times. I saw your hand next. Yeah, yours.
Okay, my name is Brian Jacobs. You have made a lot of comments about talking with everybody, engaging in the breadth of Wichita as a community. But obviously there are some things that you don't like talking about, and that's abolitionism, anti-capitalism, human rights, housing as human rights, and systemic deconstruction. So you keep saying things about community as community effort, where if we actually want to look at what needs to be done, it's systemic change. And it's systemic change within the criminal justice system that lurk on our people. So when it comes to cops being overwhelmed, it's because they're being overwhelmed by doing too much, by lurking too much, and trying to catch too many people, because we understand that fines, fees, and incarceration is a profitable business. So we know that the government profits from these actions. We have for-profit prisons all around the world. So when we think about, hey, we need community to be enhanced and we need more community engagement, we all know that this community is not an equitable system. It's a hierarchical capitalist system that puts people on the ground to be exploited and abused. And so these are conversations that you are not having by using what I call the fetish of community. You keep saying community this, all for Wichita, but we're not all in the same boat. There are so many people drowning because of systemic issues. And it's not something that community can do because it's a bigger system than what individuals can actually handle. So you as a government, with all these taxes, need to be doing things to change the systems that allow the cops to prey and terrorize people. Protesting the government, particularly the police, for 3.5 years. For 3.5 years, in 2020, we had Black Lives Matters movements here. Guess what happened? Well, they got brutalized and intimidated by the police and then ran through the criminal justice system for crimes we actually didn't commit. I was accused of 4 counts of aggravated assault felonies and 2 counts of graffiti charges for citing. And then I go to court, then they throw a handling charge on me. And that's not just me. There were 12 people that got plea deals for crimes they didn't commit because they were scared. They didn't know what to do, and the public defense did nothing to find out the prosecutor Mariah Strzok, was making up crimes against people that they didn't commit. So when we think about community, we need to think about systemic change that allows community to act and engage in a protected way. Because in a capitalist society, we are exploited, we are sold, and we know that there is not a single anti-capitalist person in this government. Everybody here is at the whim of our representatives, and you guys are here to give tax breaks to rich people. So we need to differentiate the difference between working class community and rich people trying to exploit our labor. And we use the police to control those people. So we can create all these stories of, oh, yes, they're working hard, but honestly, they're working for things that are immoral and placed there to exploit poor bodies. So how are we going to address the systemic problems and stop blaming the community for the lack of engagement?
Turn off there. I'm not blaming this community, nor do I say that there is one place to blame. I do believe that we have 7 council members, and each one of us chose to put ourselves and our families on the line to serve. Any elected official does that. And you have to remember that local government really has specific roles to play. Then there's state government, then there's federal government. So I chose to run, to represent this community, to make sure that we have a safe environment, that we have opportunities for people, choices for people. And so I will continue to try to work hard towards those goals, because I don't believe that in our community that there is a lack of opportunity. Sometimes you don't understand that that might be an opportunity. So in my point of view, I don't want to blame anyone for anything. I'm just asking for more people to be part of the solution. And if your goal is something that will help with reducing either crime, providing more opportunities for all, or making sure our streets are maintained and paved, those are the goals that this community told us just last year are the top 3 priorities. They said, please reduce crime in our community. Please fill those potholes and maintain our streets. And then they also said, please provide economic opportunities, economic development in Wichita. Those were the top 3 that our community said they wanted. So I will focus on those efforts that the community says that they want.
Follow up.
Job of law enforcement is to enforce laws that elected bodies give them. And so when we're trying to look at systemic questions and systemic issues, one thing the council did previously that I supported was decriminalization of marijuana locally. And that's something that I still stand by and support. When we look at state policy, we added to our legislative agenda, and I second, and I think Brandon had motioned to for legalization of medical marijuana at the state level. And so those are ways that we can address systemic challenges that also release the burden on our law enforcement, whose job is to enforce the laws that we, either the city council, the state, or the federal government administers. And so that's one issue and one way that I believe we're addressing systemic challenges, and something that, you know, we'll continue to look at in the future as well. So, yeah.
I definitely agree that it takes 2 to tango. I think one of the things that we could look at from the other side as a way as to how to handle things, to de-escalate the situation. For example, downtown, they go look in people's cars with flashlights to see who's a criminal or what they have, possibly that they can go and watch them after they leave the clubs. And they focus more so on the side where there's ethnic people and versus pump house, where there's white people. Well, you could just say what it is. And for example, my personal experience, I was on the sidewalk and the police wanted to flash their lights in people's faces and say, get away from downtown. And it's kind of emotional for me because I didn't like how he was approaching us, and we were on the sidewalk. We weren't at the club, we weren't on the property, we're following city ordinance. And he started pushed me to the point where I fell down. I asked him to pick me up, he picked me up. And I told him I was just asking for his badge number so I could talk to them later about it. And then they had the horse come over and ran my foot over, took my whole big toenail off. And so me and my father, we discussed with the police officers about that and how that was not a way to de-escalate the situation or how they should handle it. And again, I believe it takes 2 to tango, but I do believe that even if we take away situations where like medical marijuana or make it medical, there's still people out there that are looking at people as criminals or as a problem, and they have fear in their eyes and their minds before they even handle the situation. They're coming into there with fear, and they're not de-escalating it because of that fear.
I know that, so not only do the current recruits go through 24 weeks, as an officer, you have continuous training. De-escalation has been a workshop that they go through. They have speakers that also talk about not just bias, but we all have biases. It's from our own worldviews, from our own experiences, and how to work through making sure that we're not being prejudiced or we are not being discriminatory. These are all topics that officers have continuing education on. I'm not here to say that there are not bad reporters, bad politicians, bad people in this world. I'm just here to say that we try our very best, and whenever there's something that is wrong, we will hold people accountable, whether it's our own officers or community. We need to hold people accountable for actions that are wrong. And so I believe very strongly in making sure that we are being honest and have high integrity as public servants, both at the city council level, but also within all the departments at City Hall. So continuous training and continuous education is really what I hope we will continue to do.
So one more question, because we still have a presentation from Ms. Sally. Mr. Barnes, your hand's been up this whole time.
I'll try to keep mine quick. Okay. So one of the things that I was impressed with here was one thing that stood out here when your election, there was a lot of concern on who your donors were, money that you raised and all of this. There was conversation about, well, developers are gonna come in and she's gonna favor them and do some things. So having said all of that, here, I look at the opinion of this here. I don't care who the developer is in here, who comes in here, who changes the dynamics, the face of what our community looks like in here. But right now, you know, I'm not sure what they were afraid of coming here to change here because we don't have much to change. I like to look at things we can feel, touch, bite, and see. I don't see the businesses that are happening in our minority community popping up. I don't see those developments. I just see them regressing. Sometimes you have to take lemons and make lemonade out of that. So I want to see development come in this area. I don't care who brings it, because once you start bringing businesses and jobs and home ownership to an area that's been suppressed in here, you will see the change. Those things that we're talking about, crime and policing and all of that, those things will be outcomes when you start putting those in place. City protects property owners, taxpayers, businesses in here, streets and everything else. They invest their money in those resources to make sure that those things don't go away. If you're not a big contributor to all of those, then you're gonna be low on the totem pole of getting anything else done here. So what I'm concerned about is, how are you guys? Because when I saw the past city council in here, last few years, I don't see any of those changes. I see them all jump all around and over our community in here. The 21st, the 17th, the 13th, and those hillsides to the bypass. There's nothing new coming there in years. And so when we start talking about this discussion, and there's plans that have been out there for years about where we're gonna come in and develop this area. How do we get us at the table when these decisions are made? We're taking this lemon to make lemonade. That's what we need and how we can participate in that. I want to know how you're gonna get us to the table.
We don't need another study, right?
I'll start with that. So just not this past week, this last week on a Tuesday, we didn't have a city council meeting. It was a city council workshop. And specifically, we talked about economic development. And I hope that you will go back, see that presentation. Because number one, that presentation was from our assistant city manager, Troy Anderson. And one of the things that we as a city need to do a better job of communicating is that we're shifting away a lot of the risks away from taxpayers. Because if a developer wants to risk their money and their time and energy towards a project, that's great. But we don't want taxpayers to be on the hook for them. So that's number one. Troy has mentioned that as that's part of our Wichita plan has been. And then when it comes to development in areas of town, people take risk. And we have people who, for instance, great example, this week on Tuesday, we will vote on a decision regarding 21st and Broadway, an area that is in the north end, that now some folks have decided we're gonna take a risk and we're gonna develop that area. And they're coming before the council to make a presentation about what they're doing. So we need more people to take risk and say, we want to invest in 67214, in 67217. There are more pockets of our communities that need investment. I grew up in Southwest Wichita, so I know, I mean, I love the Winchell's Donuts back there, but I also see when I drive by there, it's still the same infrastructure, right? And so, yes, do we need more development all across our city? Absolutely. And we need people to take a risk and say, okay, I'm gonna put my dollars where my mouth is, and I'm gonna invest in the community I care about. And so when those folks do come to the table and they want to invest in our community, we have to be supportive of it, right? If we want that development. If we don't want the development, you can also please voice your opinion. But I am trying to encourage more people to take a look at Wichita. Look, if you left Wichita, I could boomerang back and see that there's opportunity to invest in Wichita. If you grew up in Southwest Wichita, take a look and see, what can I do? I've now become successful. What can I do to help the childhood home that I grew up in and that neighborhood? So I'm just gonna continue encouraging, because that's really the role of local government. It's not to just hand out, but what are ways that we can say, I can show you that there's an opportunity in this area, and will you take that risk? Because it should not be taxpayers taking that risk.
I'm very excited for the project or the potential project on Tuesday. I would highly recommend people go look at it. It's a Power Evergreen, 21st Century Broadway, and they're looking at an ability to help small businesses that are looking to get into the food industry. So a micro food industry, again, supporting small businesses. And any incentive that we have in one corporation has to be offered to small businesses as well. Has to be an equal playing field for anybody. But you'll see every single meeting that I ask, I'm asking what is the risk to taxpayers, as the mayor said. And if there is a risk to taxpayers, then we need to evaluate what the return on investment is as well. And so I look forward to reevaluating how the city does offer incentives, and how do we hold people accountable as well, and what is the accountability in that. In addition, during our workshop last week, Councilman Johnson and I had tossed around the idea of making sure that we're training loan officers at banks, that we're making sure that we're reaching out to lending officers. So when they have somebody that's coming before them, particularly a small business that may not know how to navigate the system, that we're giving them the opportunity, like, hey, these are the opportunities that the city may provide to help assist you in launching your business, or these are maybe other incentives as well. You know, large corporations, they have plenty of legal staff that knows the system and how to navigate the system. Smaller businesses don't have that opportunity. And when you see government often creates bureaucratic hurdles that make it difficult for small businesses to thrive. And figuring out what ways we can remove regulations to allow small businesses to flourish is a priority of mine. Again, large businesses know what regulations have, how they have to engage in the process. Small businesses may not know. There is an example of a restaurant that had opened, they got their state liquor license, they were not aware they needed to get a local liquor license, and so they had to shut down for a week. For a small business, that's a huge hurdle for them to be able to make profit. And so how can we streamline the processes between the state government and the local government where we don't have duplication of regulations, where you don't have duplication, where you have to get some permission here and another permission here. When it comes to zoning cases as well, figuring out ways to decrease the burden on individuals looking for development, that instead of always having to come to the government to ask for permission to develop certain places, there are going to be zoning as of right so that they can develop the place without coming to us and having to go to the district advisory board and then going to other boards, which is a hurdle for people that are just trying to launch a small business. How can we make it easier to do this in Wichita? And that's a priority of mine for particularly small businesses in our community. So I'll give my closing remarks real fast because I know you said one question. I'm going to stick around. I do have to leave here probably 11:20 for another meeting, but I'm happy to answer any questions. And feel free to email me as well. But I look forward to engaging more with you. My door is always open at City Hall. We're trying to get more people in City Hall too. It's not that, yes, you do have to go through security, but it's a very welcoming place and we're trying to make it more welcoming. My email is dglasscock@wichita.gov. So feel free to email me anytime. Thank you for the invitation to join today. I'll come back anytime I'm invited. And if you have any community events that you want me at as well, I will always say yes to an invitation as long as my calendar is open and I'm at a good time. So thank you for today.
So echo this being the market that is not have you guys, will you raise your hand if you've looked at our wichita.gov website since January 1st? Great. So we just launched the new face of our wichita.gov website. It should be much more user-friendly. There's also language capabilities to try to help our community who speak another language other than English, as well as our visually impaired individuals in Wichita. So please take a look at wichita.gov. On the city council page, you can find all of our contact information, but there's also a button at the bottom that talks about inviting any of the council members or the mayor to any of your events. Please fill that out in particular, because that gives us all the information we need to attend your event and try to get it on the calendar. And again, it's wichita.gov, city council, and my email address is lwu@wichita.gov. Thank you very much.
I appreciate Mayor Wu and Councilmember Glasscock being here today and having an opportunity to talk to you. Everyone on the council is very responsive, so if you do have more questions or want to get more information from them, please reach out. They gave their email address, an easier way is just to call City Hall, 316-268-4331. You'll either hear from Norma or Jenny. Both of them can get to any of us at any time, leave us a note or shoot us an email, or take care of any issues you might have. Again, as the mayor said, we definitely want you all at City Hall. So she did mention that we will be starting to have some quarterly evening meetings. So for folks who can't make it because of work, we'll have some meetings in the evening. I hope you all show up. I was joking with the mayor that we've been talking about that for a while, and I was able to get the one evening budget meeting per year. And from everything I hear from all of your neighborhoods, we normally have 8 to 10 people to show up. And when you do show up, we're listening. That evening meeting tends to be a pledge of allegiance, a prayer, and budget. That's it. And we want to hear from people. So again, this year it's August 8th at 6 o'clock, aside from the quarterly evening meetings. But if you have questions on budget, if you want to see us focus in different areas, that's the meeting to be at this year, August 8th. Yep, City Hall, where we normally have our meetings. Before we get to our presentation, I want to recognize State Representative Laura Carr, who walked in. We have another election in space. It's been good working with Representative Carr on the state level, represents his district. If you have any hard questions, call Representative Carr. But I just wanted to recognize him and thank you for being here this morning. Our next presentation is from Miss Sally Stang. She is awesome. Why she's awesome when she presents. I always love hearing from Sally. She always is a wealth of information. I also have not memorized 14 pages of the acronyms, but Sally's able to break that down very well. So she's bringing some really important information for the housing department. I've heard from many of you and others in the community questions about what all we offer, and especially about our public housing units and all the struggles we've had. I've been able to break some of that down in pockets, but Sally, the expert, is here to talk about that. So with that, Ms. Sally, thank you.
Well, good morning. It's so great to see so many people out here today, but I'll tell you, I got a tough act to follow with the mayor and the council members. Today, I'm gonna go through just a quick, and I'm gonna do it quickly. I promise you, I'm not gonna read all this information to you. It is a quick overview of the programs that we offer out of the Housing and Community Services Department. And when I do this, almost every time people are like, wow, we didn't know those services were available to our community. So we are going to drive through those pretty quickly because I do have some that we want to focus on in particular because we have some great stuff going on. So people don't necessarily know that the housing department actually has 3 different divisions that are usually represented by 3 separate agencies in a community. So in the housing department, we are the Public Housing Authority. Those are usually a separate agency, but we're a division within the department. Our jurisdiction for the Housing Authority is actually 3 counties. We cover Sedgwick County, Butler County, and Harvey County outside the city of Newton. And so with the public housing program, we have the public housing program and the Section 8 program that fall within the Public Housing Authority. We're also a community action agency. There are 8 of them in the state of Kansas. We've been a community action agency for more than 30 years. And we serve all of Sedgwick County. And we crazily, as you see, our program year for that program is 18 months long. Talk about trying to make things a little bit difficult, but that runs from April of one year to September of the next year. And then we're also the Community Development Programs Administrator. And that our jurisdiction there is just within the city of Wichita limits. And the program there runs from July to June. So I always love when I get a question from the council member or from the community that says, can you give me the numbers on such a thing? And I'm like, okay, that program has a different reporting year. So trying to get data consistent is a challenge in our world. We're also always either in a reporting period or a planning period for one of those 3 different realms. So we have 60 full-time employees. Our funding sources, look at that. We get money from HUD, Department of Health and Human Services, Department of Justice, Kansas Housing Resources Corporation, Sedgwick County, and the City of Wichita. Every one of them has different rules and regulations that we have to make sure that we're maintaining at all times. And sometimes they're inconsistent. It's always fun. Our budgets over the past 6 years, if you notice, in 2019 at 27 million, what happened all of a sudden in 2020, 2021, 2022, funding jumped. COVID. We had lots of COVID money coming through and had to get that deployed in our community very quickly. And now we're seeing that ramp back down. We don't have that additional funding. So I'm gonna really quickly, as I said, we have rent assistance programs, of course, with the Section 8 program, as well as our converted Section 8 RAD program, which is our former senior housing. So we are in the process of finishing up a $37 million investment in the 4 public housing properties, Greenway Manor, McLean Manor, Rosa Gregg, and Bernice Hutcherson. So 226 units of senior housing that converted out of public housing into Section 8. Next slide. We also have the public housing program. I do want to pause here for just a minute. The city of Wichita attempted to convert those under RAD also, but it wasn't financially feasible. So I know we've talked about this at this meeting in the past. We've worked with experts from HUD who have determined it's our best strategy to divest of those single family homes and reinvest that money in multifamily housing. We have been working at that for over a year. So we did get approval to sell the first group of 37. Some of those are on the market right now. There's been tremendous interest. We have an open house actually tomorrow. The listings of those properties that are up for sale is available on the city's real estate website. The great news is, and I know the community's been really excited and waiting patiently, is the group of 43 units at Minnesota Ash, Pyatt, and 25th, right? That neighborhood, we just got approval from HUD for the disposition of those properties. That application went in on July 3rd, and we just got approval from HUD. Those properties are part of a pilot program we are looking to launch to make those properties available by RFP to be purchased at market value to developers who will be limited. They can only earn a developer fee. They can earn no other profit. And we're providing ARPA funding at $40,000 up to $40,000 a unit for them to be converted for affordable homeownership and or affordable rentals with a limitation of only 25% being rentals. We believe that a concentrated investment in that neighborhood is going to make a huge difference. And to convert it from 100% rentals to a healthier mix of 75% homeowners, 25% rentals. So we're very excited about that. We should see that RFP for that drop in the next 30 days. We have to give existing residents 90 days notice, so some of them will trail a little bit longer than that. And we are waiting to issue that until that next group of 23 down at Haskell and St. Clair. We're doing the same thing there in a neighborhood in the Southwest, because we have this theory that says that if we do a targeted investment, we're going to see the whole neighborhood. Right? And then we yesterday got approval for group 3, 51 single family homes scattered throughout the community. We'll be seeing those start rolling out for sale in the next 30 days. So we're finally seeing some movement from HUD and getting the permission to sell those properties. We will be using the proceeds from those properties to build new affordable housing. So very excited. Once we get under 250 units, we'll be able to do a process with HUD that lets us take the whole rest of the portfolio and what they call streamlined voluntary conversion. I can't wait to see what HUD considers streamlined. Whew, it has been a tough go, but we're very, very excited about this opportunity, particularly in that neighborhood. Moving on to, I think you could go back real quick. We also have homeowner assistance program. So we have a home repair program. We can do home ownership vouchers. We provide funding for developers to build new infill single-family homes like Habitat for Humanity, Mennonite housing and such. We're gonna go a little deeper into, next one. The home repair program. The home repair program, Sarah's here at the very end of the presentation. She's gonna do a deeper dive into that because we just reopened the application for a revamped home repair program, and she is going to get into the details. We have a home improvement loan program where we can buy down the interest rate on a homeowner home repair loan. If you got one from a bank, maybe you have a bigger job than we can fund, we can actually help you buy down that interest rate. We have a historic loan program. If you own a building that's on a historic registry, we have a loan program to help with repairs. Rental rehab loan program is for landlords who lease to voucher holders and have a long-term commitment, can get assistance in making repairs under a loan program. We have individual and family support programs. So the IFD, the Individual and Family Development Program, that is out of the Community Action Agency. And it's comprehensive case management to try and connect people with job training, educational opportunities. It is intensive case management to try and move families into self-sufficiency. If involved in that program, there are funds for emergency assistance for those folks. They have to be engaged in self-sufficiency program. The family self-sufficiency program sits right under the voucher program and is limited to the voucher program, very similar to IFD, but you can earn escrow that can be collected over a period of 5 years and used for down payment assistance or any other thing the family wants. And then we have the cash program, which is a savings matching program to help people build money for down payment on a home. Next one.
Ma'am?
Yep.
On the individual family support programs, how do you define people to be in that program?
So
What's the qualification?
There's an application online. Pretty much anybody who's willing to invest their time, they have to be low to moderate income, being willing to enter into case management, can sign up online, and one of the case workers will reach out. Yes.
You mentioned online.
Mhm.
What about those people who don't have?
The staff at all the neighborhood resource centers have access and assist people in doing this every single day, as well as the libraries are often very helpful in helping people find. The Way to Work program, I'm also going to take a little time at the end to talk a little deeper about that, but that's our summer youth employment program. We provide funding to Project Access, who provides medical devices and prescriptions to people who are uninsured. We fund summer camps. So if there are families who need children to go to summer camp, maybe so that they can work, if they can qualify, we can pay the fees related to summer camps. We do homeless service programs. I'll tell you, the last couple of years, about 40% of my time spent in the homeless arena, trying to identify resources and solutions for homelessness. But we have several programs listed out there. And then we have community development programs. So we help to fund the Propel Hope program, which is the small business assistance that started here in District 1 with Councilmember Johnson. We said, hey, that's a great program. Let us add some more money to that. Let us add some CDBG funds for CDBG eligible programs so we can help more small businesses in the area. That the funding from CDBG isn't limited to District 1, as some of the District 1 funds were. We fund MABCD department to demolish condemned buildings so that we can remove blight within neighborhoods. We fund infrastructure improvement projects, so sometimes drainage projects in low-income neighborhoods, bus shelters, park improvements, things like that. We do facility improvements, which we worked with the Dunbar Theater for their step 1A to convert the theater into a community center that they can use and be an asset to the community while they fundraise to try and build out that whole theater area. We fund the community resource centers. Most people don't realize that the funding for Evergreen, Atwater, and Colvin come from community development block grant funds and an MOU with the housing department. Currently, we're funding youth crime and prevention programs, so we support Boys and Girls Clubs, Real Men, Real Heroes, Catholic Charities Harbor House for domestic violence and victim services, Wichita Family Crisis Center, those.
You say we fund Catholic charities?
Harbor House, the domestic
Okay,
violence
okay.
shelter, yep. And then the Wichita Land Bank is fairly new, and it is an attempt to be able to take properties and convert them to productive use. So either vacant or neglected properties. We're hoping to be able to get some through the tax sale. That's been very, very challenging. But if a property owner owes taxes and wants to not be foreclosed on, they could donate to the land bank. And then the Affordable Housing Fund program is the program that will deploy those ARPA funds, for example, for the 43 houses up there. Okay, that was the quick rundown. Of 39 programs run out of the housing department with only 60 staff. So very, very dedicated, hardworking staff to try and pull off as many programs to serve our community as possible. And we look for every opportunity to leverage programs. That's the beauty in the setup that I talked about, where we're what's normally three separate agencies, all under one department, because it gives us the opportunity to leverage funding from one program into another program to make it stronger or to offer services at a higher level. That a lot of communities and a lot of my colleagues across the country who are housing directors are jealous. They're like, you can actually tap into ESG funds? Yes, I can. You can actually leverage, one program against another. Yes.
My question is, I've got all of these properties up in my neighborhood and everything you say is good, but what about the contaminated situation from the 29th over there? They're constantly building, or what are we doing? We hear this and that about what's going on, and then now they even got, I read in the book, they say, if you think you have cancer, you can go to Grace Med and they'll check you free. But what are they doing as a whole? How can you constantly profit from a neighborhood that has contamination?
So as far as the groundwater contamination, we're not involved in that remediation. However, I will tell you that before HUD, and that was part of the delay and how long it took them to approve our application to dispose of the properties, every property had to be tested for radon, for groundwater, for vapors, those kind of things. That was part of the delay in that. And so we are very comfortable in making those properties available for sale, but it took a long time to get through that process. And I absolutely agree with you. It's something that needs to be.
Is there any chance that this slide presentation is online so people who want to share the word can get to it?
Absolutely. We had copies of it here for people who didn't like the online, but we'll have the Atwater Center send it out to whomever would like a copy of the slide.
But it is online,
It's not posted online yet because I actually created this for today.
but it will be.
But it will, yeah, we'll send it on out. Yes, ma'am.
I was just asking, I have an intellectual brother graduate. Do you guys have anything for them to transform actual students to becoming their own independence? Do you guys have any programs for that or housing for them as well?
Well, you said he's 18.
He'll be 18 with his special needs, and I want him to be able to have his own independence. So I'm saying if you guys have any housing or any corporations that can help assist them to become more independent.
You might connect with, actually, it sounds funny, Goodwill. They have a great training program and access to housing resources for people with disabilities. But there are definitely one in that realm. And depending on the disability, there are a couple of.
Functional.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you.
Of the original HUD houses, not the Section 8, are they all being sold in different groups?
Yes, they are being sold in different groups, but not those ones that I talked about, Minnesota Action Hyatt will go out at one time.
So once you get all those sold and you're talking about building affordable housing,
Yes.
who will administrate that?
We are, well, actually, that rolls right into my next slide.
So is that for people who are low income, just like the original HUD program?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. It's just under a different structure and model.
And what do the other two programs come under, your office? You have, housing, public housing, and then you mentioned like the, oh, I can't remember.
The CAP office,
Yeah, the other, there are three programs now under your office.
well, there's three what would be offices or what would be different organizations in other communities. We actually have 39 different
When
programs.
do those come under?
They're not under, I mean, they're in the housing
In the
department.
program, when do they come under the housing program? Because I was thinking that the original housing program was just, public housing and Section 8.
Correct, that's the one division
Yeah.
within the department.
So when did the other two come in?
The CAP office has been there for over 30 years.
Under your office?
Within the housing department, yes. The community development activities changed about 10 years ago. They used to be run out of the city manager's office and they moved them into the housing department. It's been quite a while. Yes.
Has the income threshold been changed to factor in inflation? And where I'm going with this is that I know some single parents, especially single moms that are working 2 or 3 jobs. And they're like $500 away from meeting the income threshold because even though the economy is doing better, things are still high.
So each of these-
Services and products are still high.
Each of these programs have different housing, income thresholds. They're probably much higher than you realize. And when Sarah does her presentation, she actually has the chart of the income guidelines. But each program, so the Section 8 Public Housing Program, they're at 50% area median income. The community development side, like a home repair, goes to 80% area median income. So each program has its own set of.
Yes, good morning. I'd like to talk about the Way to Work program.
I'm gonna get into it, I promise.
Okay, I'll wait for my questions then.
It's one of my favorites and it's active right now. I thought,
Real quickly, so I get the importance of putting people in homes and houses and stuff of this nature. Do you have to sometimes incentivize people to want to live in those areas in here? So what things are the housing department working with the city on incentivizing? The city will give incentive to airlines to come to the airport. They'll do things of this nature to help subsidize some of those programs and things. I see even in places like Kansas City where they have co-op grocery stores, stuff where the city gets involved and private investors and the community in here to bring those things to them. Everybody brings a little bit to the table. So what is housing and some of these other incentive programs with the city and here working to try to bring those creature features that we all want besides just a roof over our head?
so it was actually the housing department that worked with Power CDC to bring this in a lot here when it was here. And they received the CDBG allocation in order to do that. It is unfortunate that it didn't last. And it became outside of our purview once once they owned it and decided to sell it. Although the CDBG money that went into it had to be repaid when they sold it, but we couldn't stop them from selling it, unfortunately.
They're able to do these in Lawrence, Kansas City. And these are investors, these are co-ops, nature in here. So I don't see why it can't be done in places like here, where you incentivize not only the people who live in the area to live there, but encourage those to come. So maybe part of that ownership or part of that incentive in here on loans and qualifications, if you buy a house in this designated area, you get the membership, you get these things and the returns on some of those investments.
So like for the project we're talking about up on Minnesota Ash and Pine, I call it the map, just Minnesota Ash and Pine. That's my acronyms, right? There will be home funds that'll be available for each property that is bought as a homeowner, provide a down payment. So I mean, we're really working hard to try and encourage people to buy homes in that area once the repair is done. Yes, sir.
You keep putting all these houses for low income people and help people move up. And then on the other hand, I hear you talking about developers coming in and having permission to buy these homes. I cannot see how this will correlate to somebody being able to afford a home. The developers probably are gonna make money. Something else.
On this project, the developer cannot take one dime beyond the predetermined developer fee, no matter what that house sells for. That's how we're building in an assurance affordability and that we don't have developers just coming in trying to flip high profit. That's all in the project design.
Is something gonna be in writing to say this, is it going to be enforced? That's the question.
It will absolutely be enforced. It will be, there'll be land use restrictions and mortgage covenants that protect that to ensure the long-term viability.
I'm with him, I understand what he's saying, and they have that in place from years ago with the banking. It was called the Community Reinvestment Act in the community. And so I don't know what part of the city is doing to make sure they're not continually redlining the community that they're trying to help.
I hear you.
Supposedly saying they're helping us, but then when you go put your application in, and you can have all your dots and have a 7.5 or 8 credit line, and you still can't get the money. So what are you telling us that you guys are saying, if they developers come in, are we gonna still have the same problem we had with the banks, with the developer?
Not
That's what
likely.
that man said. Is
Not-
that what you said, sir?
Not likely. I really do expect the
Yeah, that's
developers
what
that
I'm
are gonna
catching
come
on.
forward on this are the developers who do this now, like Mennonite and Habitat, because they will be capped on their development.
Okay, and then here's another thing. I looked at the house on 1258 North Erie the other day, and I called Cedric County to get who owned the house, and they could guess who owned the house. It's a rental company. So these homes that are empty, if you think you have an opportunity to talk to the homeowner, there's a developer already bought the home in our community. So, you can't stop them from making money because it's a capitalist, like that gentleman said, it's a capitalist society. So we have to try to figure out how we gonna get help to get into these properties from the city or, from some other entity.
I hear you. Those out-of-town investors, they're
They
challenged.
buying.
So even the single-family homes that we're selling, not under the RFP, we have a first priority to owner occupied, to not be investors. Because we see the challenges that out-of-town investors can have on our neighborhoods.
And you guys' waiting list, I have a friend, she said she's been on the waiting list for Section 8 for the last 3 years.
She's been on for 3 years. She does not have the residency preference on her application. There's a question on the application that says, do you live, work, or hard to work in Sedgwick County, Butler County, or Harvey County? And I'll tell you, people answer that no all the time. And if they answered no, it's the only way she could be on for 3 years.
Well, she had got the fix, but they said that she's still in the waiting list. And she called, she checked. And
She can log into her application on the portal site and double check that residency. That's the only way she could still be on the waiting list for 3 years. That is if she said no to that. And it's crazy to me. And when people will call me on the phone and say, hey, I've been on the list, and I'll look and I'm like, you didn't check yes to the residency preference. And they'll say, but I don't live in Sedgwick County, I live in Wichita. I'm like, "Oh."
it's our same thing. Oh, baby.
It's not really a question for you, more of a general statement about housing and the issue with the way we do public housing. And something obviously for our representatives to process. And it's the idea that we only provide housing, public housing in particular, whether it be for the unhoused or victims of domestic violence. It's always when people are suffering. And so when we have these programs, we're like, yeah, we want it for low income people. Well, these people are already in vulnerable, unstable situations. And then they come into these situations with high hopes, but obviously the reality of being an able-bodied is not a reality for a lot of people. So when it comes to housing, and this is something that I perpetuate in protest, housing needs to be a human right.
I don't disagree.
And that's why you being in housing, I understand you see a lot of the instabilities that occur with this, but particularly with Section 8. Section 8 is great and terrible at the same time because of all the limitations that it places on the family. So my family works in real estate and I'm a landlord, so I understand a lot of the processes and the lived experience of not being able to have a man of the house, for instance. People get in trouble for having their partners over there and sitting there And so we have these situations where it's just like, look, you have to demonstrate how much suffering you're doing just for us to help. So we need to have a transition in the way our government is actually operating and providing public housing away from the concept of suffering, away from the concept of toxic saviorism, and to the extent of we just get housing as a human right. And for instance, food isn't even a human right in the United States. We're like the only country in the world that doesn't have that as a human right. So just a general statement, obviously we have our representatives here, so I wanted to make the comment that we need to be making legislation that guarantees our protection, particularly as we compete in this very volatile capitalist society.
Oh, I'm sorry.
My question is about the funding for the repair for homes. I'm getting calls from people in my Northeast Miller Association when they get ready to sell this property. Even if they've inherited this property, if their parents or grandparents or whatever had some repairs made to the house that the city was involved with, even all the way back to the urban development program. When they sell that product, that property, they're having to pay thousands of dollars back to the city.
Some are, yes, it really
So
depends.
Is that going to still continue? Because that seems a little bit unfair.
When we get to the section on home repair that Sarah's gonna do, she's gonna get into the meat on that. But yes, that is true. It really depends on which era of the program that people were involved in, and they signed those agreements when they signed them. So there was a period where this community, every dollar put in came back when it was sold.
And it's still coming back because that house could have been back in the 70s or 80s.
Yeah.
And now
That is
that
true.
person has passed away, you're leaving that inheritance to your children, your grandchildren. But when they acquired it, now they owe the city $10,000-$20,000 on repairs that were done 20 years ago. So that's the problem.
And that, we have to hold people to the agreements that they signed at the time, and if we gave those, how many people who've paid them back since then would be harmed by that? That was changed in 2005. That program, the first $5,000 was forgiven, and we were limiting repair jobs to $5,000. It was forgiven after 5 years. That's to prevent people from coming in, asking for home repair dollars, and then turning around and selling it and putting the money in their pockets.
That makes sense, but for it to be 30 years and you still have to pay that money, that's a problem.
Man, I agree. But on that same property, it has guaranteed, it has probably appraised in value in that time that you're walking away still with proceeds, even though you had to pay back, either whether it was down payment assistance or home repair
The
funds.
property
that
they
were-
have, but the work that was done on that property has certainly depreciated and probably needs to be redone again after such a time. So I understand the 5 years, that makes sense, but for it to be perpetual, that never makes sense. And something needs to be done.
And know that as that money does come back, that's what funds somebody else's project. So when someone sells the house, whether it's 10 years later, 20 years later, any piece of that has to come back and can only then be used to help the next family. And the next generation. So I'm gonna move just a little bit. I know we're gonna run out of time. The multi-agency center, just wanted to put this on people's radar. This is a major project that we are trying to pull together related to homelessness. This is to build a 24/7 service center, okay? That will include why it's called the multi-agency center is trying to get providers to come to one spot, to be able to provide services with a warm handoff. Not, oh, I need some mental health counseling, here's a card, call the people a week from next Tuesday and find your way there, right? We need to be able to give people a better level of service, to include congregate shelter, non-congregate shelter, and additional housing. This is a huge project that we're working on now. Can you go to the next slide? We started this about a year ago. We have narrowed it down at this point to 2 potential sites, including the old Riverside Hospital and property in the heart of downtown around where Humankind is now. Much of the feedback we're receiving now is that it needs to be a blended approach with housing in both spots, as well as that multi-agency center in one. So this is continuing to move forward. It's very exciting. We're talking upwards north of 180 additional housing units, and the public housing proceeds will help fund that additional housing. Not all of it for homeless, okay? Some of it just low-income housing that will be built on one or the other side. So very exciting. I'm sorry?
Where is that at?
So this is, the old Riverside Hospital, which is at McLean and Central. And then the other is Market and Murdoch area. Or that's at the south end. Yep. So those are the two potentials. So we evaluated about a dozen sites, got narrowed down to 6, got narrowed down to 4. Now these are the top 2. Now the other 2 could come into play if we can't either secure property or get this going. But these are the top 2 potential sites at this moment. So, you know,
Yes, when you say we evaluated, who was included in that we? And, hold on, how many community stakeholders that have boots on the ground have you included in that process?
Lots of them, actually. The homelessness task force, who have members that are from about a dozen different sectors in the community, including education, law enforcement, healthcare, providers, domestic violence, elected officials. The homeless task force was heavily involved in evaluating, but we do have a development team that has architects, construction folks, low-income housing tax credit experts, and experts from across the country on how to develop such a site.
How many people from the respective community?
Not yet,
itself?
but we're not gonna upset a community until we know we're going in it.
But that's,
Or could go into it. We don't wanna go into communities. The other 2 that aren't being considered right now, throw those people into the mix. We're not gonna do that yet until we land on a particular property, and then or 2.
but the planning has already been done.
No, it's not all done. It is definitely not all done. But there are a lot of requirements, and these are the properties that we are narrowing down.
Are there any requirements? Are there any requirements in all of this development for minority contract?
Section 3 all over the place, absolutely, because there's federal money. All right, we'll move on because I know we have a timeline. So the way to work, this is one of my very favorite programs. This is our summer youth employment program. And each year we hire about 150 to 200 young people from our community, ages 14 to 17. We prioritize youth in the 14 and 15-year-old realm, simply because there is not another youth program in our community that serves those well. Like Workforce Alliance, we connect very well with the other youth employment programs, but Workforce Alliance can get people, can get 16 and 17-year-olds into jobs at Textron and Spirit. And those, so we are, although we don't limit that 16 and 17-year-olds can't come in, we do prioritize because we look at that as our means to try and help those kids get ready for the next step. But it is limited to 14 to 17-year-olds. They come in, we do training on financial literacy. It's everything about resume building, how to dress, how to act, how to behave, what not to say, what to say, life skills. And then we put them in a 20-hour per week job. And that job, those jobs are all over the city. We are looking for small businesses, nonprofits, government agencies who are looking for help. This is a win-win because we try and match young people with their interests. If we can, someone's looking to go into the medical field, we're hoping we can find a placement that is something around medical. That's a very big challenge for us right now. We see a lot of kids really wanting to go into medical, and we don't have enough job placements. And it makes me happy that they're looking in the medical field, right? But if they're interested in, IT, they've been able to go into the city's IT department. We have a couple of job placements that are around IT. We are looking for places for people to be able to place these students. We pay their wages, so it is a win-win. The small business or nonprofit doesn't have to pay their wages. We ask them to be a good host and a good first job teaching location for the kids participating in this program. The applications for the youth is open right now. That's why this is so timely. It's open for a month from January 19th to February 19th. We are taking applications. That QR code will take you right to where a youth can apply to participate. They are actually City of Wichita employees. They can put that on their resume. What a fabulous thing. They may be working at parks or at the animal shelter or any small business in the community, but they're truly a City of Wichita employee and they get to use that on the resume. There are requirements though, parent participation. We want the parent engaged. There is a roundup. We schedule these to prepare, and we do it when USD 259 is on spring break that week, right? To prepare for the first day of work and the trainings that are coming. Yes, ma'am.
What qualifies the youth?
Really, any youth that's in Sedgwick County can participate.
Regardless of income or whatever.
We have a priority for low-income families, but if we have spots when those families are full, we can take those that are not.
The children are gonna be the ones in the interview, just screens about IP.
Yep. And you know what? That's just like they do in any other job. We're also looking for people who would like to volunteer to do job interviews. It's hard to do 150 to 200 job interviews in just a couple of days. So that is all coordinated. I can't thank WSU enough. They got involved this past year. They're heavily involved this next year. Much of what's happening is happening at the Metroplex. They are providing resources and training. And this is one of my absolute favorite projects that we do. It's exhausting for the 10 weeks that we've got them. But in the end, we have had some tremendous success stories. But yeah, sorry.
Yes, I'm with Common Ground and we've had the Way to Work children for 2 or 3 years. What happened last year? I mean, and it's a very beneficial program, but we didn't get the youth last year because there was a glitch in the system or something. And we didn't get any children on Way to Work.
That I did not hear that, but we can follow up on it. Find out
But
what
the
happened.
application's open, you're
Yeah,
ready.
and then there's a link on the next page. If you want to flip to the next screen. So those are the job site supervisors, so the agents who want to participate, this is what we ask them to do, provide, employment opportunities, provide conflict resolution, comply with laws. That link at the bottom, and sign up to be a job site and for additional information about being a job site.
Yeah, the youth are already asking about it, so that's good information. Thank you.
Are construction companies able to be part of this?
Generally, they won't with the youth of that age.
Want to say this needs to be put somewhere where it can be distributed throughout the entire city. Because most people don't know about this slide. And the deadline's on.
So it has been distributed through the District 1 emails. The flyers were actually on the desk when I walked in. I was like, yay! And it's all over the city social media.
Other dabs too.
I'm sorry?
I hope it's out there.
It is.
And that's where you get new people involved and listen to same abuse.
And we do reach out to the schools and they promote it within the school. Yes, ma'am.
You mentioned healthcare, and so when you're looking for jobs, it has to be a not-for-profit or?
Not necessarily.
So like a rehab aid tech position could work?
Or even just file, I mean, where we're finding more luck in placing is like doctor's offices, and they tend to do more reception, but it kind of exposes them to, the surroundings of working in a medical office, that kind of thing. They have all their, legal rules and things that can make things challenging.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So I always look for the win-win with the communities and the youth and stuff of this nature. About 8 years ago, I met with the director of the Workforce Center, and she was explaining to me about this job we had with the companies and how many jobs they were listing in here in the funding. So a lot of these jobs here, these companies, some of them came through the Chamber of Commerce, all of this. A lot of these job sites and stuff in here, the age in here, and even sometimes the safety issues here, the kids cannot work in. So parks and dog places where they could actually go and do some things in here. And I asked her in here, I said, these companies that are part of the chamber that put into these funds in here, I said, is there a fund in here